Dark Ages. Test, test. Test, test. Sweet. Test, test. Sweet. I'm gonna make a coffee. If you've tuned in and you're started watching the stream from the start, I need to fill up my mug. Everything's fine. Just look at the goat skull or the bull skull, whatever. Just pray to it, it's fine. And if you've jumped in for the live stream, I'm just brewing myself a coffee. Hopefully we'll get some action, some good questions, but I've got some ready that can hopefully be helpful anyways. If you don't see me on the screen, it's just because I'm brewing up a coffee real quick. Feel free to drop a line, say hello, ask any questions you like. I'm an open book. I know some stuff. I've been playing since, probably not as long as you'd think, just a lot. I've been playing since end of October, and I've been consistently in top 5 since December. So November was sort of like my crash course, where I figured out the ropes and like how to put together a decent enough deck to make it into the top 50 first. I made it top 50 in November, the end of November, and then December, January, February, and March have all been 5 or better. Keeps getting better, right? It's when December 5th, January 3rd, February 3rd, and then March, just recently, I was in 2nd place. So I've got a good, I have an okay resume to help you, I think. As someone who, I did play a lot in November, but part of that was figuring out how to allocate resources efficiently, to be able to build a collection faster and just be able to suit up and boot up to play top 50, pretty much. So if nothing else, this will be an archived Q&A where I'll ask questions to myself, or maybe even over the course of the hour I'll propose sort of like a roadmap to get you from wherever you are, whether it's Prospero or Calth or Blessed Mars. But we'll try and get you from there to Terra. That's sort of, my I don't think you need to play hyper competitively to have fun with this game or any other game. I'm the kind of person who once my lens is turned on competitively, I struggle to play kitchen table Magic after that. If you've heard that expression, if you're a Magic the Gathering player, for example, there's competitive players on the one hand, and then there's kitchen table players on the other. You know, just a bunch of folks who want to play in their spare time or shoot the shit with their friends, and they're not building a deck to tear the face off their enemy in 3 or 4 turns. They're building to have fun and play the cards that are flavorful. You can still do that here. You don't really need my help to do that. Just pick up the cards you like, play them. There's nothing wrong with playing casually, but I don't think you need a roadmap for that. If you want to get to high Terra, if you want to be fighting in top 50 or winning card backs or making more out of your event, you know, if you want to be able to hit 1,000-point event minimums, or if you're running a lodge and you want to be able to have a lodge that can score 25,000 points, which accesses another tier of event crate, I can help you with that. So I'm gonna dip back and have any questions. That's fine. I have some ready for posterity. I think I've repeated my game plan enough that I can now go forward and execute it. Coffee time. Coming right back. I'll never be your beast of burden.
I think you're going to want to prop the laptop up a little bit.
I'll use my book.
Here. Just prop it up on top of the basket. There's a bottle you want to hold on.
Cool.
Is that a bit better?
Yeah, I look more person-sized here.
Yeah.
I'm screaming now. I don't have that I'm gonna archive
Yeah, you
this.
kind of want like a...
Okay, you're showing them too much of the guts of the operation, though. Demonette.
Sorry, I'll just let you look like shit.
Fair enough.
It's a little bit red tinted, but I don't know how to fix that.
I'll take it as it is, I guess.
Like there might be some like advanced settings that you can change, like you know how on TV you can change the colors.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's a much better angle.
Great.
I hope you live with
The basket that my laptop's propped up on. It's perfect.
this.
Okay. I'll see you soon. I'm conferring with my machine spirit. I operate... Yeah, my app whisperer. It's very dark ages of technology. So the first question that is probably pertinent to a new player is, how do I get new cards? Or how do I get new cards quickly? Yeah, that's fair. Baguettes. Here you go, buddy. Typically, I know that there's other card games that allow you to generate cards on your own. To farm them or create them or whatever. You know, like if you want a copy of Pride of the Emperor, you can invest in that using whatever game currency there is. You can't do that in Legions. If you want Pride of the Emperor or any specific card, the only way to get that specific card as a single item is to wait for it to appear in the shop, which rotates out every day, one faction to another. There's no rhyme or reason behind which Legion is featured. They take turns and I'm sure there's probably an order to it, like every 8 days or 10 days with the neutral factions. You're on to Sons of Horus again or whatever. But if you want a single card, you've got to wait for it to show up in shop. Sorry, you can't. There's no permanently available e-store or collection of cards that you can just buy from. You've got to save up gems from it and buy it like that. And I would recommend, for orange bordered or yellow bordered cards, the rarest and tendentially the strongest cards, save up your gems. Don't go chasing crates to get them. Crates are good purchases for a new player, and they should be almost exclusively what you purchase, basic cards crates. And I'll open the game app in a sec to show you that. But you don't want to be fishing for a legendary rare card in a crate, where the odds are really against you. If you're going to do it, you are guaranteed a legendary after 20 crate purchases. So if it's that important to you, actually just track your purchases per crate. Or save up to buy 20 Alpha Legion crates if you want a chance at cracking Pale Spear, for example. But when you look at the math, 20 crates at 200 gold, and you still may not get it. You may get a duplicate legendary. You may get a legendary that you don't want. They exist. So I wouldn't recommend going diving for legendaries like that. Especially if you're close to finishing a collection, you just need 1 or 2. It sucks, but just wait in the shop. I find that's the best place to get a hold of new cards. What is the best faction? There is no best faction. Every faction has some strong warlords that show up in High Terra. High Terra I'm just going to use to refer to top 50, basically. Pardon me. Oh, nurglings in my nose. Oh boy. Oh, I got it. Every faction has at least one warlord, typically who has the chops to play in top 50. And I would say that at any given time, top 50 does have some warlord from every faction, almost all the time. I don't think even the slacker factions, as I consider them, for competitive play, like Iron Warriors, for example, even Iron Hands can be kind of slackers. Even those are represented in High Terra. They may not be top 10 or top 20, but they're strong enough to hit 75% win rates. And right now in High Terra, basically to push over 4,500 points with your rank score, you need better than an 80% win rate. And you start to hit a point where you really actually need 90% win sprees, or a consistent 90% win rate all the time to really advance up the chart. So does every faction so far have a proven, tried, tested, and reliable deck archetype that can do 90% or better? No. Not that's been proven anyways. But definitely I've seen, there's Iron Warriors in top 50, there's Mechanicum, there's Colonel Ornatov from Imperial Army, there's any warlord. Not every warlord from every faction is featured, but at least one warlord from every faction. So if there's something that you're attached to for lore purposes, it's playable. Don't rule it out. Some warlords, sadly, are not playable. But the only way to really be certain of that is to test for yourself, is to do a bit of research, and by that I recommend just hitting up Discord or Reddit, seeing what kind of deck lists are available that others have shared, riffing off of that, or building your own brews, because it's one thing to say, people say, well, this warlord is crap, because they don't run into him. Well, if nobody plays him, then sure, he's crap. Or if only a couple people play them and they are not really refining them much, or putting in the work to to really tweak the deck to be able to be playable at a high level, we won't really know. And so sometimes changes in the competitive scene don't really happen until a player or players or a lodge as a whole takes an interest in a warlord and decides that they're going to just workshop it really hard. And we've seen that a couple seasons ago. I think the most notable appearance of a different warlord was probably Kelber Hal, the Adeptus Mechanicum warlord, the founder of the Dark Mechanicum, no less. He was widely considered to just be trash. He received a small buff. And then, rather quietly, one player, Croix Lacroix, a French player, decided he would pick him up and get him to work. And he did. And he did. And he basically created a new archetype for that warlord. So now that's chronicled in the Discord now, so it's there, and you'll find data like that for any warlord. So if you want to play the jankiest of warlords, or a warlord that you think is just hot trash, but you want to play them anyways, there's a resource for you. It's not as good as having a single Bible of deck lists, unfortunately. Okay, just checking, making sure that the feed's coming through. I'm using Dark Age technology here, so I promise that the next stream will be maybe within the next couple of streams. It'll look like a professional stream, but bear with me and my squeaky chair. So yes, there's no best faction. There are simply better factions than others, but there's no out and out best faction that just makes all the other ones unplayable. Everyone has their preference. Everyone kind of has their own sort of top 3 factions in their head, what they are, but it doesn't necessarily rule out the other ones. You just need to be innovative and be patient, because every warlord plays a little differently from the other. Every warlord has their own pacing, and every warlord can kind of create a different game, completely different game. Even if that's just the difference between one warlord likes to attack with their face every turn, one warlord does not. The pacing of the game is completely different. The way you're going to get to victory is completely different. How long the game's going to go is completely different. And how long a game goes, or how long you let a game go. Some people are very squeamish about finishing a game quickly. They're hesitant to use their warlord's health to do that at times. How long you let a game go is also going to define your own little personal meta. If you're playing late games all the time, for whatever reason, valid reasons or not, if you're playing games that go late into 9, 10 energy or later consistently, and that's what it takes for you to win, well, now your deck needs to be built around dealing with other people's high-end stuff. If you're playing a deck that wins on turn 4, 5, or 6, and they exist, you don't care about Subjugator Titan, the 10 energy Emperor's Children vehicle that, like, if it shows up and hits you, you probably die. It's a 10-10 with cleave 10 and shield. Like, you'll just die. But if you never get to 10 energy, who cares? It shouldn't bother you. If you never get to 10 energy, you don't need to play Melt-A-Bomb in your deck, because the game's over before you would ever get a chance. And you don't need to cover your bases so much. Create a plan, stick to it, carry it out, have some bad matchups that you try to mitigate, but the point of the ladder isn't to build a deck that can literally beat everybody all the time. There are some decks that have existed like that, like Fulgrim was kind of like that. Garo's a little like that now, a little bit. I think it's too early to tell though, but you know, we do have powerhouse decks that show up that don't appear to have any bad matchup, and run roughshod, and usually will win a season. We'll have a player pilot that warlord to a season win in first place, and you'll see people around that ranking start to imitate. So March's top 5 was 4 Garo players and me, not the Slaaneshi party I was hoping for. But But, you know, like a lot of people would say piloting Lucius that high just isn't possible, and some people struggle to get him off of lower planets, so anything is possible. Like, Nemetor is being played in top 50 as we speak, specifically to counter Garo. So everything is meta dependent, and we have to consider, if I'm not doing anything to change the meta and no one else is doing anything to change the meta, well then of course maybe it appears broken or imbalanced. But it's kind of by going out and innovating and picking warlords that we want to play or want to figure out that we do start to change things in the meta or set new trends. Or if everybody had started to play Kelber Hal 2 seasons ago, and a bunch of people did, but it started to force conversations. You know, like in Excalibur, for example, we're a high level lodge. We tend to come first or second in the ranked accumulated scores for the lodge, and we take threats like that to the ladder seriously because it's a good deck. So we start talking about, okay, do we play hard removal now? Is Ambassador Malgator enough, or now do I have to play Perfection's Flight or another copy of Outflank or whatever? Most factions have access to hard removal, by which I mean tactics that can kill a troop no matter how strong it is or tough it is or what kind of defenses it has. But that kind of conversation or those sort of changes to decks don't happen if changes don't happen in the meta. So if we all keep playing the same decks, if we all keep playing the same warlords and just spin our wheels and are happy with the win rate we're getting, or happy to accept a strong warlord in the meta as just a bad matchup, well then it'll stay that way. And sometimes it is an issue of balance. Fulgrim clearly proved that his win rate was so high so consistently and against so many warlords that something needed to change in his design, and it did. Probably enough things to change to drop him down 5 or 10 win points, which is all you need for the balance, right? But now Garo's sort of the king, and he'll be king for as long as he's king, either until he takes a nerf from the design team or until someone innovates something to go and crush him. And it's harder to figure out those meta calls in this game because it is still kind of new and still sort of forming, you know? The meta's still changing season to season with just a couple of really stable, highly competitive warlords, which I can talk about. I don't know if I've got any questions yet. No, I can keep going with my questions. And if anyone wants me to open up the app sooner than I plan to, probably open it in about 10 minutes or so, or maybe now, then just let me know and I'll open it. Coffee. Sorry, I have to give the spiel about trying new things in the competitive meta because it's important, and a lot of people don't do it. And if more people did do it, we'd probably see more quick changes in it, or get to see what cards are good or not. Experimentation is a big thing. So if you've got lodge mates who like to experiment, test with them. Ask them what they're brewing. Lodge is a great resource for that. So what's the best faction? There is no best faction. The best faction right now is Death Guard with Garo. And that's just because he's able to play quick games. He doesn't have a lot of bad matchups, if any. And with high player skill, he can change the pace of the game, whether it be more aggressive or more defensive, so quickly. He can just switch it on a dime, and he always has more cannon fodder in his hand. He's pretty strong. If you want to counter Garo, you can play Nemetor or Salamanders. I've been playing Vulcan, and Vulcan's been doing pretty well. Hey, my friend. Yeah, it's Sunday. I don't think that's Shabbat, though, but Sunday's Sabbath, so that's okay. Yeah, you can play Nemetor. You can try Captured Mandragorax. I've been trying her with mixed success. Emperor's Children are always good. I don't think Iron Warriors and Iron Hands do too well with Garo, but they've got game. Everyone's got some game. It's just about how many bad matchups you're willing to accept in the meta. So, you know, for Lucius, my bad matchups are World Eaters. Pretty well any World Eater that isn't Shabran is a problem for me. And I know that. When I get on the ladder with Lucius, I know that my World Eaters matchups can be coin tosses, and I just accept that. And if I know that it's a time of season, or for whatever reason that World Eaters are super, super popular, and it's just going to hurt my win rate too much, or for that stretch of 20 games or whatever, then I'll switch decks. I'll switch decks that are something that's a bit more sturdy against World Eaters than my precious, fragile little 30 health, catching 5-6 damage to the teeth every turn. Like, I can't get punched in the face. I need it. But it happens with Lucius sometimes, as you might know if you're a Heresy fan. But I'll open up the game. I'll keep the volume low, and I'll just go into one or two simple things, like we'll go into the shop, events, and we'll look at lodges really quickly. If you're a new player, it would be good to look at lodges. And in the meantime, if there are any questions, please feel free to fire away. We go. I just downloaded the Steam version a day or two ago. My words don't always sync up the way they're supposed to. Okay. Folks, just let me know. The shop is where you want to spend a lot of your gold. Well, it's the only place to spend gold, really. But shop as a new player is something you want to be familiar with. As a starting player, you really want to be banging out as many of these cards crates as you can. Crates, because I think it is confusing to have a base set called Istvan 3 and an immediate expansion called Istvan 5. So for the sake of simplicity, this is just a basic cards crate or a cards crate, and this will be the Istvan or Istvan 5 crate. I will not call the basic set Istvan 3. It's just confusing and annoying. And they've laid it out quite well in that you can see what factions you can purchase or are available to you. Just means green bordered, which isn't necessarily super helpful. But let's just open a crate. No colored border, common as hell. Common. This is a crate that has given us the bare minimum of what it promises. And this is why crates are not a great investment if you're searching for cards that are rarer than green bordered Roth land speeders, for example. So for a player like me, I don't think I'm missing many cards from the base set. There's not really any value to buying crates because it does look like this. It's just a CF +5, +5, +5. It's just getting me gems. It's not going to earn me any new cards. But as a new player, so many cards in the neutral factions. Alone as a new player. And you'll see the watermark of the Imperial Aquila here, which marks it out as being part of the set. You'll see other cards with different watermarks based on what expansion or base set they're from. But even having a card just like Defense Satellites, is it played much in High Terra? No, but can you get to High Terra without it? Probably not. It's a super useful card, but it's common as hell. It's from the basic set, and the only way to get it, aside from waiting for it to show up in the store, is to just buy cards crates. But it's so common that it's very likely that you'll hit it within a couple of crates. And you basically want to fish for a couple of cards like that And once you have them, you can buying cards crates, but Seek and Destroy is another one, for example, that border. It's common as all hell, which means it's hard to get. But you do want it. You won't play Seek and Destroy in every deck. Sometimes you won't play Seek and Destroy in any decks, but it is a very cost-efficient troop removal tactic that behooves you to have because it is a neutral card that is versatile enough to put into any deck. Highly playable neutral card from the Isstvan expansion, and we have the watermark here of the snake trying to choke out the eagle. I like that imagery. But Artillery Strike it's a chaos card, so it means you can play it in any Legion deck or any neutral deck. You can play it in anything you want. The only way to get it, aside from waiting for it to show up in the store for 20 gems, is to open a expansion crate from the Isstvan set. But for 100 gold, if it gets you one Artillery Strike, it's a pretty easy purchase right there. Our bare minimum crate, we've got one rare card, one green bordered card. That's it. If we were fishing for legendaries right now, we'd be a little bit cross, I think. But that's what you can expect when you're opening, and that's why your main objective in buying crates is to be getting value neutral cards, or the common and rare cards for a faction you're trying to collect. If you're trying to collect salamanders and you're just starting, yeah, I wouldn't. I would say it's fine to buy the expansion crate that features salamanders, but it's also good to be willing to spend. So Mechanicum is on sale today. It's good to be able to spend 200 gold on a faction-specific crate, because now we are focused in how we exclusively want to get a bare minimum crate, but we scooped up 3 Mechanicum cards, and if our objective is to get a big Mechanicum collection, then buying a specialized crate is a way to do it. And it's a better way of hedging our bets to get a rarer card from that faction. It's not a bad way to get it. But I think that if you're searching for 1 or 2 cards, you probably want to wait for them to be on sale in the shop. We've got a cosmetics tab in the shop. We've got the veterans tab if you've bought the veteran feature, which I recommend at least as a one-time purchase. And we can talk about that, but it's not essential to being a new player. And as much as I really do believe that we should support creative endeavors like this so that they can keep going and get better, so I do support spending $10 or more a month. Buy some tickets or whatever. And if you don't, that's fine too. You don't have to. But I think it goes to a good place, and it helps the developers have money in the bank to keep pushing new product and expand it. If we all play for free, eventually the game will stop. But if you have the veteran status, which you can purchase, you can subscribe to here in the Star tab. If you've got a veteran status, you basically get a second store, so you've got twice as many options every day. If you're looking to buy a collection fast, it is worth it, just by virtue of having a second shop, because now we've got the public shop running Mechanicum cards, and we've got the veteran shop, which if I was a Salamander collector right now, I feel pretty happy with, because now I don't have to, I can hit Salamanders some other day in the shop, but I've got access to them now as well. So it will increase how quickly you can accumulate a collection. But basically what we're looking for in the shop is, yeah, you can spend 20 gems on these common cards. Because they're so relatively accessible from a crate, I don't recommend buying common cards for gems until they're really just one of those last hard-to-reach bits, or you've got extra gems. Like 20 gems for me right now, I'm not going to lose too much sleep. Gems are better spent on epic or orange bordered cards like this that are much, much harder to get from a crate. Very difficult to find in a crate, the orange bordered card you want. So when you see them in the shop, 400 gems is well spent, if that's a card you're looking for. Whereas green bordered rare cards, we're guaranteed them in every crate. They're relatively easy to find. Don't lose too much sleep over 100 gems, but be willing to spend on some crates first, because these are pretty common cards, and 100 gems as a new player is a lot. The only way really to get more gems is to be buying more crates and basically getting more duplicates. I'll just show you that again quickly. I'm sure it's very obvious, but every time I open a duplicate, I get gems instead. I own 2 copies of Vibius Talon already. I won't get any other copies, I'll just get gems. 35 gems, and that's from a crate that I own completely. So it takes me 3 crates, 3 average crates of fully owned cards to get 100 gems, basically. That's 300 gold for 100 gems. For a new player, that ratio is going to be even less. You're going to spend even more gold for 100 gems because you won't collect as many duplicates. So do I think you need to splurge on Narek Drager for 100 gems? Only if you really love him. Because you will kick yourself when that hard to find legendary, probably not this guy, but maybe it is, up and you want to be purchasing him, that 100 extra gems can really make the difference. And if you're trying to accumulate a competitive card pool quickly, that's the best way to do it. Yeah. Any questions? No? That's okay. This is content so far. So that's how that's the best way to get new cards. And my suggestion is that's better. As a new player, you'll have a bunch of cards in Sons of Horus. Started off, and I think got as far as I did by just hammering home Sons of Horus. So because I started with... It will be your best collection as a new player, because that's what the starter warlord comes with. That's his faction. My suggestion is that if you just want to be, if you really, really want to just be playing competitively as fast as you can, if you want to be playing the strongest deck of some other faction as fast as you can, you'll need to put up with some pain, and you'll need to play Sons of Horus for a bit. The reason that I suggest that is you already have a substantial card pool in Sons of Horus. You'll have more playable cards, so you're closer to having a more competitive card pool to play with. And you can play Loken and Terra, you definitely can. But just being able to play Loken competitively faster, by having a card pool faster, will just help you figure out how the competitive meta works, what the pacing of the game at that tier is, and you'll be able to perform better in the rankings, which will help you earn more gold, bit by bit. It's not a lot, but it will help you earn more gold. It will help you get your daily mission done more consistently. And it will give you at least one competitive well, hey Jamie. Glad I can make you smile. That's my job. Bring joy to the dark corners of the false Imperium until we throw the Corpse Emperor from his chair. But yes, as I was saying, Sons of Horus are where you want to lean into at first. That's what I did. I leaned hard into Loken until I had Vengeful Spirit, I had the classic Sons of Horus strong cards and finishers. And I don't think I made top 50 with Loken, but I know I made top 200. And so it will help give you a leg up, and it is easier to collect. So start there, because once you start completing collections, your ability to play competitively with a faction will help you snowball. It will help you snowball how you collect cards. Just even by virtue of shrinking how many games you're losing in ranked, and increasing how many coins you're getting and how quickly you're getting them. So try Sons of Horus. If you think that I know that you start with a kind of random starting set of cards. If your random starting set of cards seems stronger in one of the other factions, if you've lucked out and you got to start the game with Pride of the Emperor from Emperor's Children, or you've got 2 copies of Endurance right off the get-go for Death Guard, ride it. Why not? But I started with like Malagurst and just a bunch of decent Sons of Horus cards. So I shouldn't say I started with Malagurst, but I was lucky enough to crack Malagurst from a pack a couple weeks through, and that started to make a difference in my win rate. You know, even when I was bumping heads with Corvus Corax back during his like peak, and I didn't win most of the time against Corvus Corax, but it was clear that that was the meta leader at the time, and my deck then needed to be tuned to that. Oh, you're playing Rask in ranked now. Good. Rask is a house. I'm glad I could help you. Rask is definitely a house at all levels. I think that's a good place to start for collecting cards. The best way to get more... I'm in OBS. No. The best way to collect... If you do want cards like Asteroids Belt, or if you do want swanky new Warlords, here are... Does it tell me? Here basically get better and better the quality of what's in those crates, the more wins you get. So for example, if you just score 1 or 2 wins, you get the most common crate. I don't think it'll tell me what comes in it, but it's basically like a basic cards crate, where you'll get a green bordered card, but that's it. The green crates, you'll get a couple of more green bordered cards. The red crates will get you epic cards, or at least 1 epic card. And I should have checked this for sure, but the yellow crate, if it doesn't guarantee you a legendary, and I don't think it guarantees you one, you at least have good odds of it. So really, of course, you want to be aiming for 12 wins, but 10 wins is pretty damn good too. And if you're comfortable enough with a Warlord that you think you can get 8 to 10 wins, invest in 10 tickets. Invest in 10 tickets. You will reduce the amount of time you're playing. Yeah, you'll reduce the amount of time you're playing by doing 10-ticket runs, and if there's successful 10-ticket runs, you will open 10 crates with 10 epics and more. So your best place to get a batch of legendary cards, or to hit a couple Primarchs, and it's no joke, you really can play the odds like this, is to go play event on a 10-ticket run, which is also why I recommend buying, it can be good as a new player too, just buy 10 tickets at the start of the month. It's $10, it goes to a good place, and you know that you've got tickets in the bank to do a 10-time run. And it will, what those 10 tickets give back tends to be pretty big. And so what I'll do, if I know there's an event that I can play hard, and I have a Warlord or 2 that I can hit 10-time runs multiple times with, I'll rack up 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 event points. And I'll that's how I'll collect a new set. So when Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and Iron Warriors came out, I just smashed through event until I had all the epics and most of the legendaries from those sets. That's the best way to do it. So what you want to do when an event comes out is, 1, reach out to your lodge. Your lodge is a network of players who have your back and who have a common goal with you. You all want to do well together because it benefits all of you. So reach out to your lodge. Hey, what's the hot event deck? What have you guys been running? What are people playing? If you know what the meta is, if you know that everybody's playing Karn the Betrayer in the event, and you know that Durek Rask, for example, is a counter to that, he's not, but whatever, then you go play that deck. Or you decide, okay, Karn's the best deck, I'll play Karn. But you basically want to narrow down your choices to pick 2 Warlords, play them on a single ticket run each, use the information that you've gathered from your lodge, or you can even go to the public Discord channel. People are very friendly and forthcoming with information. In event. Play the event. The points that you're getting, even if you're doing a poor run, they're all contributing to here. That's just the top list. But if your lodge is meeting these threshold, at the end of the event, everyone is getting a crate that's this good. So at the end of the event right now, we're at over 15,000 points. We're all getting a crate with at least 1 legendary in it. 1 epic in it. If we can meet 25,000, and we do because we're a lodge that enforces that minimum, so we always get 25,000, we get the best crate. So if you don't need to push for 25,000 for your lodge. You can be much more modest, but for your personal growth, the best thing that you can do is play event efficiently. And it's good to play around and try different things with it as well, but for pure collecting purposes, find out what the strongest deck is, or find out what the strongest counter deck is, or explore and find a deck that's strong for you. Play it on a single ticket. If you're confident you can do 8 to 10 wins, even if you didn't that time, track your mistakes and figure it out. Play it on a 10-ticket run. It will pay off, and the more you do that, the faster that you'll accumulate a card pool in the factions that you want. And I think that right now the events are skewed to give out more rare cards from the newer sets. So you're more likely to get an epic Iron Warriors, for example, than you are an Iron Hands or an Emperor's Children. Accept that, but roll with it. If you're getting lots of duplicates, it's not a big deal. You get gems because of that. And if you get to fill your Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and Night Lords collection, awesome. That's pretty awesome. You can focus on rounding out your card pools by buying faction crates from other factions when you need to. But generally, event is just the best way to do it, straight up. And what your lodge really is a place that pools event points. That's really what the lodge does. And you'll see these here on the right-hand side of the trophy icon. 10 points per win. 100 points per win on a 10-time ticket run. And I know that having veteran status adds a multiplier to this that I should be more familiar with. 50% event points. So veteran status is really, really useful, actually. Wow. Yeah, I think for a new player, I would definitely recommend buying the subscription at least once, and as many more times as you feel is necessary for yourself. Because 50% event points means that you just don't have to work as hard. You just don't. And in lieu of being able to directly buy the cards that you actually want, it's kind of the closest you can get. So it's worth it, I'd say. And if you're in a lodge, lodge is different. Lodge works off of some players have done it. A lot of those points. Some players are just starting. But by the end of the event, it's mandatory. And everyone will do it. everyone else. It's fair. Most lodges that play competitively have some event point minimum that they ask their members to meet. If you're part of one of those lodges, you're familiar with it. It's usually 750 or 500 points or maybe 1,000 points. If you're in a less competitive lodge, don't be discouraged. You can broach the subject with the lodge master, or maybe you're the lodge master, and you can request that that members meet a minimum to be in there. And you can request whatever minimum you'd like. It gets harder if, you know, the newer the player is or the less resources the player has, it can get harder to meet those minimum. So 1,000 point minimum, I think, for a lodge that isn't super competitive is very extreme. But if you're a starting player and you're in a semi-competitive or starting player lodge, why don't you try even 100, 250 event points. 100 event points even lets a casual player play a couple of single ticket runs and hope to do one of those single ticket runs 8 or 10 times, hopefully. It sets a cool little benchmark for people to meet, because if you can do 100 points even on one ticket, sweet, you're a hero. You did 10 wins. That's awesome. But scale it however works for you and your group. But scale it to this. Scale it so that if every member is meeting their points, you're hitting one of these tiers. Because and you'll see a crate by one of these tiers. And don't be dissatisfied with just a blue or a green crate. It's nothing wrong with that. It's something you didn't have before, and you get it just for playing, basically, for playing successfully / semi-successfully. So set a goal for your lodge, try and meet it. It'll help you all collect cards faster, whatever that goal is. That's how we stay on top of the meta, typically, in Excalibur, and how we stay a top lodge. We all have full collection, not full collections per se, but we all have very robust collections because we smash the hell out of event. Unless we hate the event, and sometimes we'll just barely meet our minimum, 1,000 points each. But usually we gain a lot from it. So right now I think people are going to farm quite a lot of event points in my lodge because Space Wolves and Thousand Suns are coming out in May. So the more gems or gold or completed card sets we have, the better we're set up to buy Thousand Suns and Space Wolves when they come out. I haven't seen any questions yet, but that's okay because I've been answering my own, and hopefully this is useful / semi-useful information for newer players. There are no bad questions. None whatsoever, so not a big deal there. So I've talked about event, I've talked about the value of lodges. Lodges get certain social prestige or bragging rights from performing really strongly on the ranked ladder. At the leaderboard, okay? I'm not on it yet. Season. Not yet. But this leaderboard is more for individual glory than lodge glory per se. Just because how you perform on it, and even how you perform here doesn't really yield any different reward. Like, whether it's Masterclass or Excalibur, and last season it was Masterclass, damn them, but usually it's us, or we take turns anyways. They're great competitors. Don't get anything special for winning that. Other than just knowing that you've got 20 beasts in your lodge. That's it. Ranked ladder is more for individual glory, and you will earn an individual crate based on your performance. So if you're in, if you make top 50, you get a guaranteed exclusive card back, and you get a guaranteed legendary in your crate. And I think the higher up, so like my crate for second place, my crate for top 5 is typically 5 tickets, a legendary, almost always a Salamander legendary for some reason. Whatever. I'm not complaining. But it's a legendary, it's a card back, 5 tickets, and then a couple of epic cards, basically, which is nothing to sneer at. How can you play Mandragorax competitively without Jubak meme site? Well, the thing about Jubak Starsight is I do raid Scuffdy. You can catch it on Scuffdy's YouTube channel. He did just do a top 5 roundup of the neutral cards. And Jubak Starsight is on it. He's somewhere in there. I would rate Jubak Starsight as among the top 3 cards in the game. If it's not immediately apparent why, I'll just say quickly why, and then I'll tell you how you can do Mandragorax without him or with him. But Jubak's the strongest card in the game because he, for 3 energy, gives you a 2/4 body, so he requires some resource from your opponent to kill, straight up. No, there's not really any Warlord in the game, as far as I'm aware, that can just insta-kill him without any other assistance, or without spending energy or a card. And Jubak Starsight replaces himself immediately. So even if he dies, in terms of card advantage, Jubak Starsight doesn't leave you high and dry. You know, he gives you a card right at the end of the turn. Maybe it's not a great card, but it could be. If you're playing a strong deck, it's probably a good enough card to appear in that deck. It's a good enough card for you to play at some point. But don't feel discouraged if you don't have him. I played Lucius my first season in top 50. I had no Jubak, no Ambassador Malgator. I didn't even have Pride of the Emperor. You know, so you can really consider it training on 100-time gravity mode, and try and find a close equivalent. The neutral faction doesn't exactly have one, but Jubak's value is card advantage and pulling an opponent out of focus. So have those features in mind when you're finding a replacement, because even Salin 11th Infantry, the 2/3 that does backlash draw a card, not even close to Jubak Starsight, but if you think of it in terms of card advantage or replacing himself with a card draw and being more difficult to remove than an enemy Warlord, he's not a 2/2 basically. Let me just say that succinctly. Salin 11th Infantry is a super cheap replacement of Jubak Starsight. Not the best one. There are other ones, but think about what Jubak provides generally, and then look at other cards that can fill those shoes, is what I'd say. Unfortunately, because the neutral card pool is so much smaller than any Legion card pool, in terms of what they're able to field in a deck, competitive neutral decks really do need all the teeth that they can have. So you can play Mandra without Jubak, and just imagine it like you're playing a deck that never draws Jubak. You're training in 100 times gravity Goku, like you'll be fine. It's how you learn. But you do want to strive to get him, sadly, and it sucks that it sucks to see him in every deck. It sucks that it's kind of a no-brainer card at this point, and that sort of hurts diversity. It's like always Jubak Starsight everywhere, but the reality is playing Jubak Starsight on curve. Take note of your games when you do it. Guaranteed, playing Jubak Starsight on curve, you will tend to win those games, just straight up. That's another reason why he needs to be factored as one of the top cards. Because he will instantly bump your win rate, or pull yours down if you have to deal with him, because he pulls you out of focus. So try and find some functional equivalents. For Mandragorax, you can try leaning full into just full-on do damage from every possible source, but play some little backlash critters or go the full Imperial Army route until you get him. But it sucks. It will be better when you have him. How good are Lucas Crom and Zerial Storm? Well, I gotta check who Lucas Crom is. Which would unfortunately be giving away but he's the one who makes the common machine. Slowly scrolling. Do I have him? I don't own Lucas Crom, so that says something. You control no other troops. Can you hear my voice now? Hopefully you can still hear my voice. Lucas Crom is not super great. The reason why is that he's a very high energy cost infantry troop type. And infantry and Astartes troop type are very vulnerable to one of the best removal abilities in the game. Ambassador Melgator, the ability to return Astartes or infantry troops to hand, makes Melgator very, very powerful against cards like Lucas Crom. So, competitively speaking, you don't see Lucas Crom much, or you don't see many very high-cost infantry or Astartes because what... Hopefully this works. All I was saying is the investment... Oh, jeez. Okay, hang on a second. Let me try a fix. Is anyone else having no sound? Thanks for putting up with the Dark Age tech. How's this now? Oh, shoot. Am I in now? Dark Age tech. Sorry, guys. Thank you for bearing with. I do intend to invest in some upgraded technology. I am working from the Dark Ages, and I'm hidden behind a giant warp storm cloud. That's what Toronto, Canada is. But I will invest in some better technology because I know I have hiccups like this, and don't worry, I know. I fix. I'm sorry. So Sean, hopefully you can hear me. Lucas Crom is weak because you spend a full turn to play him, and your opponent spends a fraction of a turn to energy to dispel him completely. He's very vulnerable in that sense, and if you get blown out like that, you will likely lose. That's why finishers tend to be vehicles or demons, or if you're going to play Lucas Crom, it's after a series of bigger troops who have baited out the Ambassador, hopefully. Zerial Storm has been kind of cool in Latara Sarin. She can play a lot of those end of turn or start of turn damage effects and hide them behind Armsmen. So you can play it there. You can play it in Ornitov. I've seen it played in Ornitov competitively, and it can be good. It can be scary. The random effect kind of keeps it off of being tier 1, unfortunately, because you can. The amount of times that I've staved off death by just feeding it little 2/2s or 3/3s and then it randomly kills them instead. It's just the downside of the card. Lucas Crom, but like what deck to play Lucas Crom in? I mean, he could be a finisher in an Adeptus Mechanicum deck. You could play him with Caleb or Kelber, I think, because those decks are playing a lot of sort of like mid-value beaters and strong cards through, and it's very, very realistic to have an AdMech troop like Laztol get Melgatored away, to get targeted by Ambassador Melgator, so that you can then later play a card like Lucas Crom. But mostly the problem is, like, unless you're protecting him, he may not stick around, so putting him in a deck like Kelber Hal can be good. I think he's a bit too expensive, but it could be good because Kelber Hal plays Escape Vent. And Escape Vent can just stealth out the troop completely and save them for a turn. So I would try him there, or I would try him in a deck that plays Escape Vent. Where else could you play him? Yeah, I think that's what I'd do with Lucas Crom. But at lower levels, he's definitely going to do more for you. So cards that work at higher tiers don't need to be the cards that work at lower tiers. You can play big beaters at lower tiers that are Astartes or infantry a little bit easier because less people have access to strong cards like Ambassador Malgator. Whereas once you get into top 50, the tendency is that almost everybody is playing Ambassador Malgator and Jubak. So you need to be, when you're building your deck, you need to know what's the worst thing that can happen. Ambassador Malgator, what does that mean for me? I lose, typically. Maybe I don't want to play it. Maybe I'll play a vehicle for a couple energy less. And that's the thing to do with that. Just want to make sure the sound improved here. Sorry for the sound issue, folks. Okay, perfect. I had meant to have some more time to tinker with the sound and the tech, because it's not intuitive to me. I'm a Dark Age dinosaur. I'm afraid to say. Like I pray to a skull. There's a spear. Like it's very Death World here. I'm doing what I can, but I pray to the primordial truth for life every day, and I'm doing okay. The warp storms will come back soon, but I'll be back. Don't worry. How long did it take before I felt like I finally got any good? I had to get my ass handed to me a lot. A lot. I did play a lot. I played a lot. I had a crazy hectic summer, a crazy hectic year, and my reward at the end of October was to play a mobile game. I'm not an online gamer at all. I'm a board gamer. I'm a LARPer. I'm a lot of other things, but I've never been an online gamer. But I started playing this game. I'm a Warhammer player as well, of course. I fell in love with it. I really liked it because I'm an old Magic the Gathering player, and I just played the hell out of it. So probably after about a month of playing hard, when I first started to grind into top 50, a month and a half, I started to feel like I was starting to get any good. Like the first month that I played Lucius in top 50 was, I guess it was December or maybe end of November. I'm not sure, but it took a lot of the other competitive players by surprise because they weren't used to seeing that Warlord played so high up the ladder. But playing that high up the ladder just let me face better and better players, and it forced me to get better and better because the kind of play mistakes that I could make in Mars, for example, and maybe still scrape out a win, I just could not in Terra. It just became less and less forgiving. And I've always been pretty good at just taking it in stride. You can't win all the time. You can't win them all. Sometimes you can't win any. It sucks, but sometimes you just can't win any. Take your losses with grace and take notes. If your goal is to get as good as you can so you can get more from the game, because I find playing competitively and playing well is more rewarding than just kind of derping through stuff. Though, all the power to casual players. It's not meant to be disrespectful to casual players, but if you want to play it super sharp with a goal to just reduce the enemy warlord to 0, that's all I care about. Take your losses with grace. Play often and play while you're focused and attentive. My first month, I simply just played often. I wasn't often focused or attentive to it. I just played a lot. That kind of made up for it, and I would start to pick up patterns as I went because the meta awareness was a part of it. I needed to suffer at the hands of endurance from the Death Guard on 6 energy countless times before my brain just picked up, you're on 5 energy going into 6 next turn. Death Guard will play endurance. You can't fill up your board with 3/3s because they will all die. They're all going to die, man. Don't do that. And it just took a lot of, if you're familiar with the lore, it took Lucius getting punched in the nose a lot to learn how to not get punched in the nose. So take it in stride, but I'd say have a season that you play hard for a season where take notes for your games. Play for fun, of course, too. Like, you know, if you're playing and multitasking, whatever. But find some time in the week or every couple days to sit down, have a notebook open or whatever your preferred medium is, and just focus on playing. Just play. Put away the other distractions. Just play. Have the one focus. You'll find it improves your gameplay. You'll find that it clears your thinking. And you can start to take note of what's happening in your games, where you're succeeding, where you're failing. It's why I suggest if you have Jubok Starsight, take note of every time you play him on curve. You probably will you will win those games more often on average than you will win games without him played like that. It seems obvious, but think about all the other cards you can apply that kind of metric to. There are little cards that seem ignored in some decks that are actually the playmaker cards of those decks. Like the little Emperor's Children 3/3 that shows up on turn 1, he's like the best card in the deck. But doesn't appear that way because he's just a weenie. But you don't really recognize that until you realize from just focusing on the game, oh, I played 10 games with that card, and I won 8 of them. I played 10 games without that card, I only won 7. Or 6. Whatever. But recognizing that difference in how the cards are affecting your win rate will help you. And you can only do that if you're focusing on the game. So it's less a duration of time and more about quality of time. Because for me, it was getting my ass kicked as Loken against Corvus Corax, grinding out Corvus Corax to 10, 12-minute games, doing whatever I could to... and mostly making the same mistake over and over until I realized, oh, that's why you're losing more than you should be. But it was the same with Lucius. I played Lucius for the first time in top 50 with a meta full of Angron players. And I got my ass kicked over and over and over. And Angron's still not a great matchup for Lucius, but it's not like an auto loss like it was before. It's 50% or better at this point. And that's a great way to treat a bad matchup, but you don't get to that unless you've had your ass handed to you a few times. Everything's okay there. So I'd say, yeah, I'd say find some time in the week to play seriously, but have some sparring partners too. A big part of stepping my game up further was starting to play with Havoc, who, if you're not familiar with Havoc, Havoc is like a consistent #1 season-winning player since the beta release of the game. So starting to play with Havoc and play in a lodge with Havoc and spar with Havoc, like, just instantly, there was a lot to learn from a player that was that strong. Like, just, like, the level that his mind is assessing the game at was just unbelievable. So that gave me a lot. So sparring with players, even if it's just the best player in your lodge, that's something. Knowledge is power, and you only get that through interaction. So have some sparring mates. That's what a lodge is good for too. Even if you're all at the same level or around the same playability, you'll grow together, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good place to be. And yeah, I've lost more than I've won. It happens. It happens across different warlords. Like, start of this season, I've been trying to push captured Mandragorax, but you know, it's either she's got too many bad matchups, the deck's not good enough, or I'm too sloppy. But she was losing more than she was winning, unfortunately. It does become pretty... It can, because of the way the ladder pays out points. Let me write this down. Okay. Mortarion deck must-haves and Ornitov deck. Okay. But yeah, losses can affect you. And it's easier said than done, and I'm not a Zen master by any means, but the best thing you can do about it is don't make it personal. Be graceful and a good sport about it. Do not make it personal. I don't care if your opponent emoted at you until they were blue in the face. I don't care if they took too long on their turns before they killed you. That's not the main focus of the game. Focus on what you could have done differently, if anything. Or if random effects were a part of your loss, focus on how you could have mitigated that. that's what I try and take from my losses, especially loss sprees. If I have a Warlord that's running at a loss, there's something wrong with the deck, or there's something wrong with my playstyle. And I was coaching a guy to play Fulgrim more competitively than he was, and he's like, he had my deck list, and he's like, I can't win. Why not? And I said, well, what do you do in turn 1? He says, well, I attack them. I said, okay, well, what do you do turn 2? Well, I attack them again, and I play a troop. And I said, okay. I said, can you play your next 10 games and not attack for 2 turns? Just do something else. Anything else? Generate a tactic. Do nothing. I don't care. But don't attack for the first 2 turns. He came back to me a couple days later, and he says, it turned upside down, and now I'm in a separate tier. Everything's better now. So I try and find what is the common denominator behind those losses so I can tweak them. But sometimes if I'm just too frustrated, I'll pick a winning deck, and I'll just play that, and I'll feel better about myself. Like, if I'm playing Mandra on the ladder, and she's sucking, and I don't like how many points I'm losing, I'll jump into Lucius, or Vulcan, or Angron, or whoever else I've got in my, like, you know, punch 'em roster, and I'll rock them. Best Ornithov deck. A user named Yarawicho is rocking Ornithov pretty strong on the ladder right now, and it's pretty much just chock full of strong Imperial Army troops. So it's got the obvious ones like Goldstone Hunters. I'm pretty sure it's got Urslavic 12th Infantry, the little 2/2 who buffs, and it plays Zerial Storm. Speaking of Zerial Storm, plays Joker Company, Seek and Destroy, and Artillery Strike for removal. But it's leaning pretty hard into the Imperial Army stuff. And then just riff. Oh, it's playing Asteroid's Belt. Man, I ran into him in the last 2 days, and he was at Ornithov with 10 energy, I think, and I was at 6 or something. Just huge discrepancy. And when you have, that's an advantage in the game state. If you've got way more energy than your opponent, that much more energy than your opponent, you can run off with the game. And especially with a weaker card pool, you're making up for it by having more energy. You can be good. So I would lean into, you're generating infantry already in your hand. I would lean into a couple more vehicles for him, have a bit of good removal, and have some high-end finishers. He might have even played Shipmaster Karya. But that's a deck you could put Lucas Krom in if you wanted, but Shipmaster Karya is better just because he fits Imperial Army. He benefits from some of the other buffs you might have. So I would rock that for Ornithov. Absolute must-haves for Mortarion Death Guard. Endurance in 2 copies. First wave, 2 copies. Death Shroud is really the best place to put Mortarion, or to put, yeah, Mortarion is the best place to put Death Shroud in, but you can live without Death Shroud. Really what you want are Endurance, First Wave, Osgarg Squad. Maybe I'll open up the app quickly to just open up some cards. And tell me if sound changes, because maybe it's when I'm opening the app or something. But I'll just crack my Morty deck open quickly. It's a little bit retrograde, I think. I think there's stronger decks out there, but it's okay. And that'll give you a sense, I think. A lot of the Death Guard cards play similar. The Death Guard cards play similar. Death Guard Warlords play similar finishers. So this is mine. It's a little bit messy, but I'd identify key cards as Captain, key card in any Death Guard deck, Zaggart. I can't open them here, but that's okay. Zaggart Squad is pretty key. You don't have to go the poison route, but I like playing with the Death Cloud and Phosphex Bomb. I like to threaten the poison, but it's really not necessary even with his buff. And then I like to have these in the high end. Death Shroud, Haldental, Morty's Resolve. Endurance is good. That should be 2 Purity of Will. I'm not even sure why it's not. Did the voice changed? It must be when I'm opening the app. That's interesting. I'll have to work off of a headset or a mic next time. Yeah, okay. Was that all silent while I was in the app? I hope not. But I'll type some of them out quickly. Some of them at least. And some of those some of the power cards in every faction are common to all the warlords. Like, no, I'm not using my phone to stream. I've decided to finally start getting with it, and I finally downloaded the Steam version after about a week being out and not doing anything with it. No, I'll tinker with it later. I won't go back and forth between the two because I'm gonna wrap up in about 10 minutes or so, I think. But I think an answer is a headset. Yeah, Morty's Resolve is good. I don't want to stack too many legendaries on like the must-have list because it feels discouraging to start. But I play Morty's Resolve in I'll play Mortarian's Resolve in Durek Rask and in Mortarion. It's very strong. I think the only time you don't want to play it in a Death Guard deck is if you're playing a tempo deck and you're playing aggro like Garo, or if you're playing Rask but more aggressively, where you're not foreseeing the game going into 10 energy, then don't play it. But I play Rask very, very passively. I just chill, I kill anything I see, and then when everything's dead, I start threat, and win. But if it doesn't work out, and if I'm still fighting to control the board deep into the late game, Mortarian's Resolve can you can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or you can even just stall them out one turn, because sometimes the games get so close that you can freeze them for a turn and then win. So it is, and I think it does work with the best way to play Rask or Mortarion, which is passively. Rask is the kind of warlord who, it's very anathema to me, but I play games with Rask where I do nothing and play nothing for 2 turns. Like, I'm not even playing anything. And I've got my Sorak bikes in my hand, but their job is to damage stuff that I will then kill. Their job isn't to go face. Some people stand by the Nurglings, but I'm not into them. They can be good, like I under the synergy to be clear to anyone who isn't aware, the synergy between Nurglings and Durek Rask is that Nurglings don't go away. Every time they die, they return to your hand to be played again. And as long as they deal 1 damage to something, Rask can then deal 4 damage to it with his ability. Nurglings, though, aren't super powerful, and they mess with your energy curve. And they're slow. So for me, I can't justify putting 2 in my deck because they don't offer enough, and I find that I have enough sources to deal damage and then kill stuff. I've got Blight Grenade, I've got Artillery Strike, I've got Endurance, I've got Informant Network, I've got 2 fast bikes. Some decks play Goldstone Hunters because that's a fast effect that can kill an enemy warlord off, or deal damage to a troop, and then Rask can kill it. So it depends how many sources. It depends how many sources you have for damage in your deck. If you're short some stuff, you can play Nurglings, but I think there are better, more efficient sources. Because I'm just not okay with my energy curve being messed with. Because when I need that energy, I really do need it. I've seen Plague Elites do well in Mortarion. I'm a bit loath, again, to spend that much energy on an Astartes troop. And it's at the same, I should say a good must-have can be Gizolk Terminators, the 6 energy conditional frontliner. And Plague Elites kind of competes with the spot for them. But they can be strong. Yeah, they can be strong. I think if you're trying to really lean into triggering your whispers, play them. They're good enough, and they are the kind of card that, like, yeah, if they sap an Ambassador Malgator out of your opponent's hand, it sucks. Nobody likes that, but having an Ambassador Malgator target your Plague Elites and not your Death Shroud, that's all right. That's going to feel really good. It's just about what happens to the tide of battle when you've spent 6 energy and then it just went poof. That's kind of what it's a question is. So be careful with when you play them. They're probably not the kind of card that you want to slam happily on an empty board per se. But playing them maybe a little later, or playing them behind a frontliner can be good. I wish they were a little bit cheaper. But I would definitely say Plague Elites over Plague Marines, and you can be tricky and cruel and play a copy of Favorite of Nurgle if you want to, which is a brutal buff. It turns that card, the Plague Elites, into a 5/12 regenerating creature. It's really hard to remove, so it's playable. Every card has a degree of playability. There's not that many cards that are just carte blanche awful. There are some, in my opinion, but almost any card has some pro to it, has some value. And no, I don't put Sabotage in all decks. I don't put Sabotage in virtually any of my decks. I've started to play one in some, but I'm usually a pretty aggressive player. I don't tend to play a lot of long game decks, and even when I'm trying to create advantages just by, if I'm going to kill a creature, I'm going to straight kill it. The Sabotage has has a very limited role for me because there's other cards that can just kill a troop dead. As far as, the only thing Sabotage is good for Mount Pharos. Whether you're playing against or with the Mount Pharos, like a toughness 9, strength 4 structure is really obnoxious to remove. So I've started seeing more of it and started thinking maybe I'll use Sabotage, but Sabotage just stops my enemy from generating Astartes. It doesn't stop a 4/9 from beating my face in and breaking my nose. So Sabotage is strong. I find that it is stronger at lower levels because the meta's much more restricted on high because we're all working from the same massive card pool. At lower levels, lower strength cards or conditional removal cards like Sabotage, which is conditional removal. It doesn't kill you at the end of the day. It quasi-neutralizes you, but it typically doesn't kill you, so I call it conditional removal. But conditional removal like that has greater value because we don't have access to every kind of removal, and we don't have access to the most efficient kind of every sort of troop. So it matches the power level of what you see a little bit better. I think some decks can just take more advantage of it. And like I've played Sabotage-like effects if I just need to, for example, I've played Andronius and Emperor's Children to just jam a frontliner. My main objective is I just need you to stop being a frontliner so I can kill the enemy warlord. And I'll use it for stuff like that, but I usually find just dealing a lot of damage is can get the job done. So I know it's not a no-brainer card. It's not in all decks, and competitive tiers. It's not in most decks, but it's a good card. It might be making a renaissance now. It's a cool card. I wouldn't mind more jam effects, to be honest. Honestly, I'm almost ready to play Melt-A-Bomb with the way I feel about Mount Pharos out there. So anything is playable relative to what the meta is, relative to what's going on. Like even Legacy of Bizas could be playable, could become more playable if the meta is just defined by guys rushing face and dealing damage with their warlord's face. Let's try it. Why not? But no Sabotage in all decks. It's not a. I think the only no-brainer cards that you put in all decks, that there's not much reason not to have in all decks, is like Melgator, Jubok, and some form of card draw. Whether it's Abandoned Supplies or Lectitio Divinitatis or whatever. the little book with the Imperial Truth, that's a lie. Yeah. Those are the cards that you want in all decks, because Abandoned Supplies or Lectitio, either one, I like to have one or the other or both, and Jubok or Melgator, because they're just too good at what they do. But there's not too many other cards that are just like auto-include. Greatest strength of the Emperor's Children card pool is, yeah, it's tempo. Which is like a weird fine line to describe that as anything different than aggro. It's essentially the same thing. It's a little... I'm not going to say it's aggro exclusively. I want to say tempo aggro just to distinguish it from how World Eaters play, which is aggro. And tempo aggro, we get thrown off course a little by World Eaters, unfortunately. It sucks because Slaanesh is way better than the Blood God, but whatever. Yeah, the best strength of Emperor's Children is to be able to basically exploit energy manipulation. Whether that's Tactical Brilliance or Hold at All Costs or for the Emperor. They all have value in different decks. But it's really just exploiting the perfection mechanic. And typically that's done very aggressively because the troops are quite small. You're really playing a lot of little troops, and we're really we're the faction with the access to the best mass buff for our troops. So we want to create a lot of value by exploiting our energy and making the most of it. And so for me, that's always been aggro. And Fulgrim was the king of that. I find Lucius is better. It's nice now that Fulgrim's pushed out of the meta, because Fulgrim was a brutal matchup for Lucius. I think the best way to play Karn is with Grace and Intelligence, which doesn't sound very World Eatery at all. But yeah, you want to rush face because you're putting out so much damage every turn. But it's mostly just timing and making the most of that RNG 1 damage ping. Time when you're playing your troops, time when you're playing the troops that can afford to take damage and bounce it around. But it will help you remove enemy troops if you're staggering your actions. It's just not as perfect as if you were Lucius or Garo or any warlord that can activate multiple times, just because there's the random effect. But I think you want to play Karn with cards like Firewalkers and the classics like Land Speeders, Goldstone Hunters, Sweeping Advance, and you can play Argus Brond and some Escape Vent. It's the random factor that makes it hurt, and it becomes a question of like, well, why not play Erlin? But I do like Karn. I've always wanted to play Karn and just didn't have a World Eaters Warlord collection for a long time. So if I get around to Karn this season, I'll share my thoughts. But Karn, there's a couple Karn players in top 50. I think they kind of hit a ceiling. I don't know if they get higher than 20th spot. I think it's too much random effects to hit like a 90% win rate with a warlord like Karn. But you can't think in character, because if you think of playing Karn as just like Blood for the Blood God, Skulls for the Skull Throne only, you'll have fun. But that's not really how you create advantage. And Karn won't necessarily win by attacking twice every single turn. You do need to gauge what his life total is at and how he's working, and lean into how the random damage is affecting the board state. Fabius suffers for the same reason, randomness. Fabius has a cool perk, but he only interacts with his own... Hey, Unbox. Yeah, Fabius only interacts with his own side of the board. So I wrote a little blurb on Reddit last week on interactivity. And the more a warlord can interact with the game state, whether that's health differential, card advantage, energy, or just the state of the board, the more ways they can interact with that, the more competitive they tend to be. And if you look at a warlord like Fabius Bile, he only interacts on one level, very one note. You have a troop, you buff the troop. That's it. Well, what happens when you don't have a troop? Or what happens when you can't afford to buff the troop and play a troop? Well, he's just a guy with strength 2 and 35 health. he's Barb and Falk. Like, he's not, you know, he's not offering value or interacting in any way that creates advantage for you. So he can be strong because he does benefit from having one of the best card pools in the game, in my opinion, the Emperor's Children card pool. He plays a little bit differently from Lucius or Fulgrim in that instead of just like pounding out tempo, Fabius Bile's never attacking with his face, and you're just trying to stagger troops that you can protect in some way or threaten and get them a little stronger. So you want to play a couple stealth troops. I think you want to play Escape Vent. I think Escape Vent can be good in Fabius. But you want to play the classic Perfection troops at the 2, 4, and 6 slots. Because they just are so strong that whether you buff them with Fabius or not, being perfect is good enough. But I think that I want more coffee. I think sadly he's the weakest. Don't get me started on Falkuary. Damn it. I wanted to make a go at Barb and Falk in February. I called it Falkuary. It was Failuary. One day. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Fabius. But Fabius has a showing in High Terra. He's more popular than Fulgrim right now. Emperor's Children 6 energy legendary vehicle. Rilanor, Ancient of Rites, I assume you mean. The 4/6 shield Dreadnought. He's awesome. He's pretty awesome. I don't play him in Lucius. I did play him in Fulgrim when I played Fulgrim. And I do play him in Sol. I might play, if I ever played Fabius Bile, I'd probably play him in Fabius Bile. Or I'd think about it anyways. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's, yeah, I got a mug. I think it's best in Tarvitz, because Tarvitz is manipulating the Perfection ability the most, and can get more troops out to benefit from it. But it's definitely a competitive card. It's just about, if you're playing full aggro Emperor's Children, you kind of just need to know that it's doing enough for you at that point of the game, because it doesn't do anything when it shows up. What does he do? He looks kind of threatening, but he's only 4 damage. Not that much, relatively speaking. Nothing to sneer at, but he's only 4 damage. He has no rally effect. He does not provide frontline. He doesn't affect the board state immediately. He promises and threatens to affect the board state, because if he lives and you hit a Jet Bikes next turn perfectly, you now have a 7/5 Jet Bikes. Ouch. Like, you're playing Pride of the Emperor for 4 energy. So he has to be dealt with, but he doesn't set you ahead right away. And it means that against some enemies like Iron Hands playing Win of the Week, or Warlords who can efficiently and quickly remove him, like he used to go down like a putz to Ambassador Melgator before Melgator got nerfed. And I still don't play him in Lucius, because he's too slow. I don't need perfect troops on 7 energy. I need to kill my opponent on 7 energy. So on 6 energy, it's got to be more damage or more instant effects. I don't have time to set up with an old traditional Dreadnought. But he's a good guy. Like, at the end of the day, really, he's the only reason that the Loyalists got warned about the viral bombings, because he let Tarvitz man the deck at the Pride of the Emperor. Maybe it was the Andronius, whatever. But so he's a good guy. Respect for that. He had honor, even though I don't really like Loyalists. It is similar to Jubak. It just scales because he's more expensive. So, yeah, he is a focus pull. He is something that has to be answered, but having to be answered at 6 energy is very, very different than having to be answered bang out the gates on 3 energy. And sometimes at 6 energy, it's like, you might find this if you're a player who plays Mount Pharos. Sometimes I bet you play Mount Pharos, and maybe you get an Astartes or 2 and the opponent never removes Pharos, but you still lose the game. Or you still kill your opponent who played Pharos on curve. It's a massive tempo loss, and Rilanor is not as much a tempo loss, but for a hardcore tempo deck, he doesn't create it for you. He's not fast, doesn't rally, and doesn't do frontline. He doesn't impact anything right away. He just pulls focus, and he can help you stay ahead. So still a great card. I just have a very particular reason to not play him when I do. So as much as he's a strong legendary vehicle in the Emperor's Children pool, my Lucius does not play him. That's a solid Fulgrim card for me. What's the top one card? There's so many variables to play off of. I would say Jubok is probably the top one card, and I rate that in terms of his ability to literally just by playing him, he increases your win rate. Doesn't matter whether he lives or dies, doesn't matter what card he gives you. As a tendency across a span of games, just playing the card will improve your win rate. So having a card like that can do that for your rate, basically, which is what matters on the ladder. Doesn't matter if you lose every game to Erlen. Who cares if you only run into Erlen 1 every 10 games and you win all your other games? The ladder is just about who can make the most efficient all-comers decks. It's not really a tournament where you have to weigh the meta per se, because even if Garo's the best deck, let's say, but no one's playing Garo, because Garo hasn't changed in 3 seasons now. Where was he? I don't know, but now he's suddenly the best. Well, the meta's changed and we haven't adapted back, right? But yes, I do want to speak to more than the legendary neutral. So aside from the legendaries, the most played neutral for me is probably Firewalkers. And I have struggled playing 5 energy troops in my decks that aren't Firewalkers, sadly. And the reason for that is Firewalkers is a strong troop type. It's a vehicle, so it's not bothered by Malgator, and not a lot of people play vehicle-specific removal still. But more than that, it's protected by stealth. So it has 2 forms of defense. It's hidden and hard to reveal and kill at 4 toughness. It has an instant effect. It gives adjacent units +1 strength. And it's usually in a space where next turn it can attack. So even if you're playing Firewalkers when you're going second, when you're on the draw, Firewalkers just being played can kind of reverse the tempo for you completely. And it's a bit sad because there's all kinds of 5 energy troops that I think are good that I want to play, but Firewalkers, while it's that good, it's hard to justify it. So for me, it's Firewalkers, and Firewalkers is only rare. So it's very accessible to new players. Very, very accessible. And I would have climbed faster if I just sort of set aside the cool factor for some cards. Like I was playing Sons of Horus with clunky 5 energy Astartes that would just get killed or just get bounced or whatever right away, and never really get their value back. Firewalkers 90% of the time, unless my opponent really has the perfect answer for them, which will still be a costly answer, I suspect. Firewalkers is usually a card that can put me ahead or help equalize me. So I play it in a lot of decks. I have to scratch my head very hard to justify other 5 energy troops. And after Firewalkers, I would say Goldstones Hunters, because again, it's multi-purpose units, cards, are stronger. So Goldstones Hunters for 1 energy more than Seek and Destroy is Seek and Destroy, but it's also Lightning Bolt if you're a Magic the Gathering player. It's 3 damage to anything you want. For 3 energy in a game like Legions, that's a fair cost. And even at toughness 2, as a one-shot effect, Goldstones is very valuable. I don't auto-include them in every deck, but if I need a little bit of extra removal and I find the deck's suffering because it doesn't have all the removal it does, I'll sub in 1 Goldstone Hunters. It's better than playing 1 Seek and Destroy. Because if I draw Goldstone late, well, that's 3 damage to your head to kill you.
Who got to stop throwing directly into their face on turn 2?
Yeah. As my Machine Spirit Demonette has said, if you heard, stop stop just feeding your opponent a Goldstone Hunters to the dome on turn 2. Don't play it and just strike the enemy Warlord right away in the early game, unless you're really playing the most like hyper aggressive kind of deck possible. Like it's not. I don't find it's like before. Goldstone Hunters used to be a 3/3. If you're new and you didn't know that.
If you're playing like Emperor's Children, it's basically 2 Prides you have in your hand. If you got Goldstone Hunters and Jet Bikes.
Yeah.
There's another.
Yeah, Goldstone Hunters is best left for late game, I find. But if you're going to throw it out early because you have a plan to deal 30 to 40 damage in a short period of time, basically. And no, I don't know if Jubak deserves a nerf. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think if Jubak didn't add a card right away, I don't know if he would be played. But he might still be, and maybe he just wouldn't be played as much. So if the purpose is creating more diversity, then sure, he should deserve a nerf, because he's not... If our game design goal is to have diversity in the meta, then Jubak does need a nerf, because there's no reason not to include him in many decks. Once we analyze what makes him so good, I find it hard to argue. I'm waiting to hear an argument not to play him. But I mean, if he were to be nerfed, I mean, just draw the card at the start of the next turn, or let him draw you cards instead of copying your opponent's cards, and then we remove a random factor. Because outplaying your opponent all game just to find that they copied your finisher, like there's nothing you can do to control that, and it's not generally a good idea to play out a whole game playing around the 1 in 30 chance that your opponent copied your finisher. It's very hard to play around that. So there's a random effect that makes it challenging. So I think maybe letting him draw a card at the end of turn, or having his effect take place at the start of the next turn, having him work like Sistar or something, could temper him, and maybe he won't be seen as often. But then on top of that, I think the strongest neutrals for a newer player are probably Artillery Strike, Defense Satellites, and Seek and Destroy. Because it's hard to get premium removal, like even Goldstone Hunters. It's hard to find those. They're epic cards from a base set that's big. Pardon me. So having some form of universal removal that anyone can play, that's a good place to be. Seeking 3 is sort of a magic number in the game. If you can do 3 damage to something, you can kill, or plus Warlord kill, almost anything in the early mid game. So Seek and Destroy can be your best friend at certain tiers. And I would say as a newer player, don't be so distracted by like the fancy toys that you may not have yet. Melgator and Jubak come from the basic cards crate. I'll double check Melgator on my phone. They're both from the basic cards crates. Mount Pharos is from the most recent expansion, Extermination. And Mount Pharos also comes in an expansion with some other cool, versatile neutral cards like Volcanic Instability, which is in the vein of Defense Satellites and Artillery Strike. A little bit more aggressive. Plays better in certain decks, but it's good. Along with Las Rifle Sections, which are another very, very strong neutral. I'm just opening my phone so I don't have to change the computer here and mess it up with the sound. Yeah, Melgator is from the base cards crate set. And Jubak is too. So Jubak, Melgator, Goldstone Hunters, all of those come from the basic cards crate sets. Mount Pharos comes from Extermination. And Mount Pharos is not an auto-include either. In Mount Pharos, you have a reason to put it in the deck. Don't just put it in the deck because on paper it assumes that it's a finisher or a super strong card. It doesn't work in every deck. It's not an auto-include. Just have a reason to play it. It doesn't belong in a tempo or aggro deck, in my opinion, because you surrender tempo with that. It's the same reason, like a card like Manifest Destiny that gives you Survivor 5. Yeah, you can play that in a tempo or aggro deck. It can help you play the game a little later, and sometimes it's just the right card to play and have in the deck. But you gave up a turn to play it, and that's not always what you want to be doing as the tempo player, because you're surrendering tempo, or you're abdicating the ability to take the tempo back. You always want to control the pace. That's how you'll win. Put them on the back foot and then kick them off a ledge, 300 style. And hell yeah, I'd play Volcanic Instability. I'd play in a lot of World Eaters decks. It's just damage on top of more damage. It's great. It seems, I think some people might be sheepish about it because it can hurt you, but you're already playing attrition, so whatever. I play 2 copies in Angron because I now have access to 1 damage, 2 damage, and 3 damage effects to hurt myself as Angron, to help me get to 1 health, transform into a demon, and then, kill a guy. Or get out of, snatch victory from defeat. So I play Volcanic Instability in Angron. If I were to start playing Karn, yeah, I'd look at playing it there. It's a lot of damage, and it's like a guaranteed 3 damage to the enemy Warlord. It's very rare that you have a board state that has more than 5 units on it. So you can almost always count that it's going to hit everything, typically. If you've got a board state that's bigger than that, you probably made a mistake somewhere. Or you're just being completely overwhelmed, and shit happens. But it's normally a safe 3 damage. Yeah, and you've got Armor of Mars to help, or I think most aggro tempo decks have no reason not to play Pi Alpha, which is now... Pi Alpha is another very strong neutral card right now that I recommend getting. If you see it in the shop, buy it. It's the Adeptus Mechanicum card that heals 3 life and removes stun. It has sort of been forced, to my mind, it's been forced as an auto-include for most aggro decks because of Alpha Legion. You can't afford as an aggro warlord to be frozen in place for 3 turns, or to have your finishers be frozen for 3 turns, while the Alpha Legion builds up energy to massacre you. So you need a way to remove stealth, and Pi Alpha is the only way to do it. So he's another top neutral card, I'd say. Number 6 best card. And I didn't put Pi Alpha in my top 5, but I thought about it. And I think if I were to take out neutrals, I might. Yeah, you can play Armor of Mars with Erlin. Less conservative Erlin players don't, because it's just boom or bust. But you can. I think the Erlin deck that Turborus uses in my video plays Armor of Mars. I know he's played it and robbed me more times than I'd like with it, so maybe a good bet just to play it. The meta is kind of crazy. You don't know how hard people can get ahead of you sometimes, so it's good to have. It can put you ahead just for long enough to win. And it's not nerfed. Just because it doesn't return to hand automatically, it's still an awesome card. You can draw it again from your deck. Ornitov's Barge is better for slower warlords. I see people play it in aggro warlords sometimes, but that's a very... no disrespect when I say it, it's a very sheepish, kind of shy thing to do. You're the attacker, you're the aggressor, your job is to keep the enemy board clear. If the board state has changed so much that you need to play Ornitov's Barge to stabilize, yeah, that can help you sometimes, but that's like Manifest Destiny in a tempo deck where it's conditionally useful. Yeah, Armor of Mars, well, I'll Rava win with Armor of Mars. But yeah, Ornitov's Barge is conditionally useful. It kind of, you play it in a deck where you presume someone will get ahead of you. I don't play it in a deck that's super aggressive, for example, because I presume that the tools that I have are such that I can just keep you on the back foot and keep you controlled. Sometimes you will overpower me, and I want to figure out how to get out of those situations or how to avoid them in the first place. So I play Ornitov's Barge in Vulcan. I've played Ornitov's Barge in more conservative variations of Fulgrim. I've played it in any deck where I'm not pushing tempo hard, where I'm a little bit more reactive or defensive. Slower decks can take more advantage of it because they have a harder time removing troops and building up their own board. So Ornatov's Barge is almost like if you're kind of behind for a lot of the game and you're just keeping level, or if you are just a little bit behind, Ornatov's Barge can catch you up. But if you're playing an aggressive deck where you want to stay ahead, Ornatov's Barge is going to be a dead card. Or, yeah, you can play it and you'll hit Forced Ogrins sometimes. Or I'm sure we all have stories where it did something awesome for us, but it's conditional, it's random, and it's a defensive card. And it presupposes that your enemy is building up a board and you're not. So play it for warlords that suffer from not having a board and from being overwhelmed by the enemy. That's what I would play it in. So Iron Hands can use it sometimes, but at lower levels, if it's a card you have, then awesome. I play Las Rifle Section in a lot of decks now. They're kind of like my new Goldstone Hunters, I find. So I think they can be pretty good in almost anything. Good cost for a 3/3 body and with a rally effect. So I especially with Horus showing up so often, Las Rifle Section can save you from taking 3 more damage from a fast Grogger squad. So there's a good meta call to have them there. They can finish off troops. Even just 1 damage to the enemy's face showing up on curve. There's another 3/3 in my deck full of 3/3s. I like you. 204th Cohort. I like it better than Barge sometimes. Or I like it as a second Barge. I think the jury's still out on it. It's just a lot of energy. Getting Las Rifle for 3 energy feels so good because you get the rally effect. So getting 2 Las Rifle sections with no rally from 204th Cohort kind of sucks, in my opinion, or just feels like less efficient. But it's not a bad card, and it is a card that I've tried playing 204th in Mandragorax. I've played it in Vulcan. It's not a bad card. I tend to follow my playstyle preferences, and even when I'm playing a defensive warlord, I'll put in more aggressive choices. I find it's too dicey to play a land war against my opponent. Like if I'm on the defense and my answer is to just play troops and hope that our troops sort of mash up and all die, that can happen like that, but it doesn't give me enough control as a player over what's happening. Which is that's just sort of the nature of the game. We can't play on our opponent's turn like Magic the Gathering. So sometimes we're just rocking troops, slamming troops on the board, hoping that there's a mashup that it clears things up. But when you put the power back in your opponent's hands, they usually have tricks to game you in some way to gain advantage over the troops that you've played. So the way I like to play is I just like to keep everything on my opponent's board dead when it shows up. Just be dead. Gone. I don't like troops to stay around for longer than a turn. So if you're playing a deck that can't manage that well, 204th Cohort can be good. Punisher is okay. It's a vehicle. It's a big vehicle. That's the strength. I think you don't see it very often because you've got high value stuff like Malagurst, who I think is starting to lose value these days. And then you've got Vengeful Spirit to finish off, and then the decks just like most Sons of Horus decks are crammed full of direct damage cards. So a slower card like Punisher doesn't seem great. I like Fellblade Katek and even Veillock Predator better. I used to play those like when I was playing Loken. I used to play those like crazy. Like Fellblade was a great finisher for me at lower levels. I think the Punisher could make a comeback. I just think I guess there's a lot of high cost, strong finishers that anyone could play. Whether it's Lucas Crom, Doombringer, Punisher, Malagurst, whatever. But you can't cram them all into one deck. So if you're going to play the Punisher, for example, maybe don't play Malagurst. I don't think that Sons of Horus deck archetype that plays best needs tons of big finishers to do well. Right now they play Malagurst, Vengeful Spirit, and maybe one more big finisher. Maybe. Usually not even. So I would follow that framework because you don't need to see more than one of these big finishers to win. And speaking of that, the best high energy cards in the game, finishers, and by finishers I mean direct damage or unmovable forces, like a Death Shroud, for example. Though I don't rate Death Shroud as best in the game, but I would say the Raven for Night Lords, Vakuran for Night Lords, and it is super strong. I don't know why more Night Lords don't play it. Pride of the Emperor, which is close enough at 7 energy. That's 7 direct damage. Vengeful Spirit and Sons of Horus. Every faction has like 1. The Harrowing. The Harrowing is there. I don't think there's really any neutrals in that realm aside from Lernia Hydra. Lernia Hydra is like, whew, I love Lernia Hydra. Especially if you've got a lot of Alpha Legion in your meta. Do it. Sarpati Squad with Escape Vents and Chaos cards can be strong in Horus. I think so anyways. I don't think it's as strong as just going pure Sons of Horus burn, but I think Sarpatis can be powerful. So try it. I don't know if you need Escape Vent to protect them, because but I think it's worth trying actually. I don't see Escape Vent in Horus usually, but you do have good targets for it. There's so many Strong Astartes already in Sons of Horus, so I support your campaign, Warmaster. Yeah, I'd play Raven and Vakuran in Flamemaster. It's a slow deck. It's a super slow deck, so you should, when you're winning, you probably are seeing that much energy, so why not? But I find Vakuran is like an unmovable force for the most part. It's so high toughness, and as soon as it attacks just once, it just becomes a nightmare to remove. 5 damage to your Warlord isn't the worst, but when you take 5 and then you've got to take another 7 to remove it, for example, you probably lost. So I see games that are just completely shut down by Vakuran. But I think just to round out the top expensive cards, there's about 1 or 2 in every pool, for sure. So I think you've got cards like Haldental, which I rank as stronger than even Mortarion's Resolve and Death Guard. High energy cost vehicles that have good abilities, either Rally or Frontline or a strong activated ability. Even if I never use my Haldental ability, never. But it threatens, right? That's what's so strong about it. So every faction has access to that kind of power. Just choose your tools. And sometimes it sucks because you're looking at 3 awesome expensive cards and you got to pick one. Like, you can't play Imperial Reaper, Haldental, Death Shroud, and like 3 other big high-end Death Guard cards. Like, it's too much top-heavy stuff. But yeah, I mean, sadly, I don't think Flamemaster's in a good spot right now to be competitive. I think it's worth trying to prove that Prejudice wrong. But I think so far the testing has found that he's too slow. But if you're going to play him, yeah, it's very slow control. Like, you want to spend the first couple turns either building a board or stopping an aggro warlord from attacking you. Can't attack is a very strong ability. It's just that Flamemaster has, he's usually going last. You're usually playing second. And your ability is expensive too, so while you're stopping the enemy warlord from attacking perhaps, you're not doing anything else. And with such little health, if you take 10 or 12 health in the first 3 turns, you might fall too far behind to really ever get ahead. But yeah, I would say play it slow, play it control, play it patiently. Play it patiently. You don't need to be dealing damage in the early or mid game. Control it. That's what your ability lends you to do, and you don't have a lot of health. So try and control it, and then knock him down. But I think of more... should I keep talking about expensive cards? There's a lot of, because there are a lot of them. There are some good common cards too. Sevatar, I think, is slow. Sevatar, sadly, is another Night Lord that kind of has botched design, I think. So, and if for those of you who aren't aware, the only Night Lord that has any showing in High Terra is Conrad. The other ones they're not there. Even Malkarian. I've started to see some Malkarian. It doesn't seem terrible, but it just doesn't seem as good as Kurz. But Sevatar is kind of an awkward warlord. I haven't figured him out yet. I would play Sevatar slow as well. I know it feels like... I know some people intuitively want to lean into his +1 strength and play him aggro, but you're not in control of that buff. You only get that buff when everyone else is dead. So I would rather play it as you want to be controlling the board, building up your energy to do cooler stuff in the late game, and then when the enemy board is empty, you're just punishing them with 3 damage bursts from Sevatar. Because that's only what it's good for. It can be good on the defense, but there's not a lot of warlords that it defends well against. It's kind of an awkward ability. It's always a little awkward when you have an ability that relies on your opponent and what they are or are not playing. The card kind of loses value right away because you don't control it. It's in the same territory as random effects. The less control you have over it and its playability, the less powerful it is, because you can't control how it interacts. That's what holds Sevatar back, really. Maybe if his debuff active ability was 1 energy less, maybe he might be more competitive. But it's sort of... He's got 2 abilities that are moving at different speeds, and I don't think anyone's figured out a good deck build to make that work. Like, some deck builders have tried with him, and it becomes this frustrating affair of like, well, why am I going to try with Sevatar when Conrad can do similar stuff much better? And it does suck that some legions are like that, where the Primarchs are just better, and the other warlords sort of pale in comparison. But at the same time, if we are always just playing a Sevatar deck with the same Night Lord's skeleton, basically, in the deck, the same kind of cards, well, we know that doesn't really work. We know what the limits to that are. If I'm going to play Sevatar again, I want to just throw something at a wall and see what sticks. Try something new. I might even be inclined to try and play Sevatar completely wacky with tons of troops and training cage and shield generator or something. Just try something new. Because sometimes certain things will stick in the meta better than others, and we get tunnel vision around the cards that we're playing, and it stops us from recognizing other strong cards. Because too hard to play doesn't mean he's bad. I think he is bad, but too hard to play, there are warlords that are too hard to play, or that people say are too hard to play. They are hard to play, but not too hard. And I would feel better if there was some proven success with Sevatar. My go-to is always to think first, what else can we do to make it good or to make it work? Because if over enough time we're putting in an effort and nothing is changing, well then, yeah, I expect the design team at that point to lean in and make a change. But if we're all just like, Sevatar sucks, but nobody's playing a Sevatar deck or nobody's changing up the Sevatar deck they're playing, it's hard to say sometimes. But I do think that he's just not. I think he's kind of awkwardly designed, and it holds him back. High risk, high reward. That's a good one. Just gonna open it up. Well, any 30 health warlord is high risk, high reward. Any 30 health warlord. They all carry a challenge innately because they have the lowest health tier in the game. And so I always find 30 health warlords to be a special kind of fun challenge. So I'd say any 30 health warlord is high risk, high reward. After that, I guess you can mean 2 things by high risk, high reward, because some high risk, high reward plays for me are warlords who end the game with 5 or 10 more health than their opponent only. It's not like because I'm playing top tier stuff, I'm like blowing my opponents out every game. Not at all. So high risk, high reward is a warlord who can like, you know, walk the razor's edge for games and games and games and still pull a win out, just through tight play or through lots of versatility in their ability. So for me, like that's why I stuck with Lucius for so long, because he's very high risk, high reward. He's not very forgiving at all. Part of that is because he has 30 life, and because his main damage delivery mechanism is his life. So it becomes an instant challenge of, how do I deal 30 to 40 health to you with the 30 health that I have? And that's all I got. So I'd say Lucius is one. I'm just thumbing through my collection here. Any 30 health warlord will present the same kind of challenges. He's an alright swordsman. I think, I feel like Exodus is kind of high risk, high reward from the Alpha Legion. Like, I don't think he can do the same kind of blowouts that Alpharius can at times, and I think he has to play a lot more tightly to be able to get that sniper bullet off at the end. So Exodus is there. Perturabo can be pretty tricky, actually. He's clunky, but like there's a certain finesse to his slowness that can be done well. So Perturabo can be there. What else is here? All the neutrals are pretty dicey, honestly. Yeah, but I feel like the common denominator, like I could go through my list and I would just keep pointing out the 30 health warlords, because their abilities tend to create a lot of value. Like 30 health warlords have some of the coolest abilities, but you have 30 health. So you're playing the whole game with that balancing act in mind. I think Ingathel is mostly garbage, unfortunately, because she's not very interactive. She's a weak Fabius Bile with a weaker card pool than Fabius Bile. So if her ability was, for example, to create a Mark of Chaos in her hand for 1 or 2 energy, it would be a lot better. I don't know how to play her well because I haven't. I know that there's some deck builders who have made a go with her, but it's not me. If you go on deck building, you can find some deck lists out there. I know Talaris and Orthanol are users that have both played Ingathel at high levels. Talaris, I think, played Ingathel in the Lodge Wars tournament and got a decent way through with her, which was cool. But I've tried playing her in like more casual tournaments with lots of energy manipulation. So I've played Dark Engine Seer, I've played Asteroids Belts, Imperial Army vehicles, and good demons, like focus pull demons like Screamers and Yuria, Pax Chaotica and stuff, like some strong chaos cards that can then benefit from the energy manipulation because I'm playing them earlier. But, you know, it's just kind of sad that she doesn't often have a lot of opportunity to use her ability. It's too expensive and it's too conditional. Because, yeah, it's sweet when you hit Mark of Khorne or Mark of Slaanesh, but when you hit Mark of Nurgle, man, like, that was a waste of 2 energy. I'd feel a lot better just making... It still cost me 2 energy to generate a Mark of Chaos in my hand and then play it. At least that way I can control stacking them on a troop. I can try and create greater demons faster. That would be better for me. I've tried commenting and feedback to say give her the ability to make Marks of Chaos the way Kelberhal makes Mechadendrites, and I'd be a lot happier personally. And it does hurt bad to lose to her because you're not losing to her. She doesn't really do anything as a warlord. You're losing to the neutral card pool, which is... That sucks, because it's technically the weakest total card pool. Yeah, Alpharius becoming Exodus now is a problem. It does kind of suck. Because it's almost a better out than getting another 5 life, sometimes I find. But Exodus is tricky, you know, because he is playing one of many in the deck, and that means his win con, which is shooting you, could get completely removed in order to survive. So Exodus has to be flexible as well. You can't, unless you are not playing one of many, which is fine. You can play Pi Alpha instead, it's almost the same. Or Manifest Destiny. But if you're playing one of many, you need to be willing to let go of your win con and, you know, try and win with Alpharius at the end of the game. So it's very cool. It feels very high risk, high reward to me. And the Alpha Legion changes, which are so radical, I think give a lot of room for play in that Legion. I still think Alfarius is stronger because he has a more stable deck and strategy behind him. But I like Exodus better because he seems trickier. I like warlords that seem trickier to play, to figure out. And the truth is, even warlords that you think are very... Some people call certain warlords no-brainer warlords. There are no no-brainer warlords. There are no dumb, obvious warlords. That's usually just people being a little salty at what they experience. Try piloting the warlord on your own behalf before you make that judgment call, because even playing Angron, and I've not been an Angron player until maybe 4 or 6 weeks ago, and I'm playing Angron now with great success in the Lodge Wars. Same classic Angron archetype, even with the nerfs. But until I started to play Angron, I didn't realize all the little micro plays and micro decisions that I could be making that could edge me out of a victory by 3 or 4 life. So at certain tiers of play, it seems like this deck just does one thing, and if you can, so obvious, just do that. But there's a lot of small decisions and small calls that you'll make over the course of the game that will accumulate to a tendency to win or a tendency to not win in certain matchups. So figuring those out, every warlord has them, right? Figuring those out is the challenge. Nemetor stream might be sooner than we think. I plan to do a Lucius episode tomorrow, but I think my life schedule is going to put that on hold maybe a couple days. But I think maybe the episode after that I'll do Nemetor. Help push back the Garo menace. I'm sure if you go into the Discord now in deck building, you can find Orthanol's Nemetor build somewhere. Seems like it's doing okay. Be patient. I've been playing Vulcan and beating Garo, so maybe it's time for Salamanders to have a renaissance and push back. I don't do coaching right now formally. I'd like to get the channels set up and a little bit more professionally organized before I start to offer services. And I truly would like to just be able to say, like, yeah, let's just spar anytime. But it just time is limited. Even it takes me a lot of time that I put into the game to get the results that I want, or to figure out what I need with my warlords, or to stay on my game. And then I have my own life and stuff. So I try and spread wisdom as much as I can, but I don't do one-on-one coaching or necessarily have the time for like a one-on-one investment with everyone who needs deck advice or help or sparring. So I hope if there's stuff you need from me that I don't answer quickly about, or I'm not able to provide to a full extent, don't take it personally. It's not because I don't like you or think you don't deserve it. Time's somewhat limited, and until I can have this channel and the stream set up in a way that I can offer like a coaching service at a fair fee for my time, and with something to show you at the end of it, I'm not doing it yet, but I would like to. Yeah, I mean, if you wanna jumpstart that now, sure, hit me up on Discord and we can figure out a plan. But I don't have a formal system in place yet. But it is on the agenda to do some coaching. What I'd like to do before I do that more formally is just pick up even more experience with the warlords that I don't know as well. That's why I played, if you caught my stream yesterday, I played Gabriel Santar for the first time. Fumbled through some mistakes, and I call them as I go. But you learn by doing, right? And it just takes time to do. But the cool thing about a lodge is the lodge can fill that gap in certain respects. And if you can bring yourself to the level where you can meet the minimums that a competitive lodge is asking you for, you basically get access to a group of players who tend to be ready, willing, and able to some degree to play with you. Because it's just people are just limited in their time, right? So it's not about being a snob, but like, the first 20 people that you're going to spar with on your list of people I want to spar with are your lodge mates. That's why we join a lodge. Yeah, no, I'm open for private coaching. Message me and just give me a day to put a plan and a formula in action that's that's fair. I don't want to shotgun into something that doesn't offer any tangible results per se, because then neither of us will feel really fulfilled from it. So yeah, I'm definitely open to it. Drop me a line on the Discord and just be patient with me over the weekend, the next few days, because I got some stuff going on in my world here. The warp storms are going to close up on me soon, and then I'll have to go back to killing Imperial scum for a free Chaos Toronto here. Yeah, Toronto is a former hive world, now a death world, shrouded in warp storms, where we fight in the street every day. It's like Necromunda on speed. So when I'm done here, I have to go back to killing loyalists until the warp storms, ebb again. Yeah, definitely. Depending on the warlord too, I've got more to offer for some factions than others. Like, my next step for certain warlord, like, my Angron game, where does that come from? Well, it comes from playing it, and then it comes from having one of the best Angron players in the game in my lodge, right? Like, I have Power Thirst in my lodge who I can lean into and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Is it stupid? And he can say, yeah, that's a stupid thing. Stop doing that. And I'll stop. Or I won't, because sometimes I need to be wrong to learn. But that's how I'll figure it out. And my next step for Santar is going to be, I don't have an Iron Hands superstar in Excalibur, but I know one in Masterclass, so I'm going to come and knock on his door, and say, how do I tool up my deck? And how do I play a little smarter, right? Warlords I'm very confident in coaching. Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, World Leaders. I should do some more solo games with warlords other than Angron, but World Leaders I can do. I can do the neutrals to a certain extent, but it'll probably have to be less my brews and more others. And kind of recognizing that they have limitations. Iron Hands, you just got to give me a chance to get behind, but I can do Salamanders now. I can do Raven Guard. Geez, I'm kind of naming a lot of them. Wouldn't stand behind Iron Warriors per se. I would want to play them a little bit more first. I can do Alpha Legion. I need a couple days to get caught up with Alpha Legion. Them much since they had a lot of big changes. If you're a new player, you may not be familiar with it, but a lot of their core mechanics got changed. A lot of their core cards got changed in costs or in text. So I'd want to play with them a little bit. I wouldn't buy Nemetor if you don't have a Sally collection yet. I wouldn't. I would, if it's really important to you to have a Sally collection, I would earmark resources to start building that. Yeah, if you only have 450 gems, definitely don't blow 400 gems on him. You'll be disappointed, I'm afraid. The jury is still out whether he is whether he is our salvation. Okay. And then yeah, I can do Night Lords too. So I can do competitive coaching for most of the factions. Some of them have caveats of if your goal is to bring Sevatar to top 50, we might need to be honest about that goal, and we can push really hard for that. We can set crazy goals, but we might need to be honest in saying, well, this hasn't been done, and we don't feel strong about this warlord, so there are limitations. Right? There are just limitations. So within each of those factions, there are some warlords that will stand out as others, and if our goal is simply to play the best deck that we can, then that's what we'll do. I'm not going to bring a Sevatar to the same level that I can bring Conrad Kurz. It's just, but hey, I'm open to the challenge. Let me open the shop, so in the VIP shop, I don't think any of these cards are must-buys, even as a Salamander. In the basic shop, I would buy Asteroid's Belt if you've got the resources, because you can play it in a lot of decks, and I find it's finding a home in more and more decks that are energy starved. So I would buy the Asteroid's Belt. I'd say that's the best card to buy in the shop today. And Latara's good. I think Latara's good. She's been played on high before. It's just, some of these Warlords, they top out even with tight players at 75%, 80% win rate. And so for a lot of us who are consistently playing in the top 10 or top 20, we're not going to spend a season trying to take a 75% Warlord to 80 or 85%. We're just going to go back into our 90%ers. Until we're willing to give, like, at some point I'll say, hey, I'm not competing this season, I'm just workshopping a Warlord, and I'm fine with that. Sometimes, like, I've had 5 seasons in top 5. I get my gold eventually, I will. I promise you. I promise Lucius will win that War Master card back at some point, but whatever. It doesn't mean a lot to me to give up a season like that. Some Night Lords are energy starved for sure. Like their abilities are so expensive, and Conrad benefits from Asteroid's Belt because it gets him to Night Haunter faster. And I play Asteroid's Belt in Vulcan, and it's pretty awesome in Vulcan because I can take a hit for a couple turns. I can take a hit all game. I'll smash a vehicle up like I'm Durek Rask. I don't care. Let's do it. But yeah, I think Night Lords like Asteroid's Belt. I think they do. Any deck that struggles to do a lot in a turn but really wants to, just take the hit on turn 2 and try and have more energy going into the next couple turns, because that can turn a game upside down. Vincente 6 had a fierce showing a couple. That's when I think that's the first time I showed up in top 50 was when Vincente 6 got a buff in a balance patch that made him really strong, except really weak against Lucius. So I kind of catapulted as a new player into top 50 like that, and then was able to hold my ground when 6 got nerfed again. Yeah, I want to build a Sevatar deck with just jammed full of troops, and the only tactics are Training Cage and Asteroid's Belt, and maybe Orny's Barge, and a couple of good removal like Artillery Strike and shit like that. So I would try playing it in Sevatar. I think he could benefit from the extra energy, because if Sevatar could go first, if Sevatar was faster, he might be a lot better. So Asteroid's Belt can kind of replicate that effect. You kind of become player 1. It can be a tempo switch, and that can help, if nothing else, but it can also just give you more energy. So now you've got energy to debuff and play a troop, for example, or play 2 troops or whatever. So I would try it in Sevatar. Okay, wow. Well, so the Q&A stretched much faster and went much better than I'd like it to, which is awesome. I don't know how I'd play him in the early game yet. He's so damn clunky. He's just so damn clunky. The trouble is just finding the right deck first, never mind figuring out how to get the best results from him. And some good deck builders have tried with him, but it's sort of he's playing Recon Claw 2, and I think he's playing more of the Talon cards, the 3/3s, the 4/3s, the 5/4s, all the cards that end in Talon in the Night Lords collection. I just want to shove tons of troops into him, because I'm well, maybe bodies will make you better. Could try frontliners. I find the strategy of cluttering with frontliners. Frontliners are expensive. You're paying a premium for that ability. And little cheap Imperial Army frontliners, they'll just get murdered. There's a couple good ones that I will play, like Siren 12th, the 2/3. I'll play that. I might play the 3/4 AdMech one. I've got Lucius posted in Discord deck building right now. And if you stay tuned to my YouTube channel, my next episode, it is going to be a little bit later than I hoped. It won't be tomorrow, unfortunately. But my next episode will be a feature of my Lucius deck that I've been running most of the new year. It has been an evolution of the deck that I already have a YouTube channel video on, and a tutorial, a brief 2-part tutorial series on. So it's an evolution of that, and it will probably be one of my last Lucius episodes for a while. Because I've spent so much time and energy on that Warlord, and it would be nice to bring other Warlords up to 90%. Yeah, and it's been a good turnout. I'm glad for that. Might have been a bit too early and was a slow start, but all the info that I've gone over is archived. I can take 2 or 3 more questions, and then once I've answered those, I'm going to shut down the Dark Age tech and get out there with my las rifle and fight the good fight. I know I only have a las rifle, but I'm making do with what I got out here. Toronto's just a brutal fight for the War Master here. The subjects of the dogs of the false emperor are fighting tooth and nail in this city. All I have is coffee and a las rifle. Can you see it? My golden AK-47? Kind of. I'll grab it so you can see it, but formulate a question or two if you have one. Otherwise, I've got to go out here and fight. This is for loyalists. I'm not going to try turning it on because it makes a bang. But this is for the loyalists. This is what we fight the good fight, okay? For the War Master, everyone. Toronto's tough. Final question, 1 of 3. How many hours do I play every day? I would... Okay, so I have 3 questions. How many hours? Best climber. What do gold? Okay. How many hours do I play a day? I'd say I average at least an hour a day. That's over the course of the week. So there's some days where I don't play at all. Or play very, very seldom, but probably average is about an hour, and I tend to play pretty fast games, so I can get over 10 games. I can get well over 10 games in an hour. Sometimes I can get a full 20, but that's like, that's kind of rare. So about an hour. About an hour on average, and sometimes I'll do that if it's a quiet moment at work. Sometimes I'll do that on the bus if I know I have reception and won't. If I'm playing ranked, I don't want to play where I have weak reception. And sometimes I'll just play it on wine while the dinner's cooking, or if I'm home alone and I'm bored. But finding an hour a day isn't too hard, or averaging an hour a day isn't too hard, and you'll climb pretty quickly with that much play. You don't need to play that much. Just play better. Just be better than me, and you'll climb super fast. Best warlord to climb ranks super quickly and end games fast. The classic aggro warlords like Karn, Garo, Lucius, Erlin. Geez, who else can play that fast? Let me just dump into the warlord selection quickly. Like, because even Angron can't play that fast. Yeah, really the fastest are Emperor's Children, Death Guard, or World Eaters. That's the fastest way to go. And so when I'm going hard for a top spot, I'll start the season by playing, even if I've played 1 or 2 seasons, the past couple seasons, where I don't play Lucius all the way through. I don't play him top to bottom. But I'll start with Lucius because he plays fast, he has a high win rate, he does have some bad matchups, but that's mitigated by how fast his games can go. So I'll play Lucius until I'd get to maybe 4,500. And then seasons that I've hit 5k, some of those have been partly with Lucius, some of those are with Fulgrim's help, because Fulgrim's a little bit hardier at a certain tier, or was. In March I played Lucius pretty much top to bottom, except for a couple of drunk weekends with Mecha Angron and Captured Mandragorax. Like, it's sometimes I just need to paint it red and shoot stuff, But yeah, I'd say you want to pick an aggro warlord if your goal is to just climb and climb quickly, or you want to build an aggro deck. That's the best way. That's the best way to climb. And so most people tend to lean into. That's why you'll see them at the start and end of the season. Watch, you'll see them, especially if you're in Terra. You'll see Karn show up in great numbers. Lucius is more popular now. I've been holding the Lucius flag for a while, but I think he's getting a little bit more visibility now. So Lucius is more popular. Erlin's more popular. Garo's strong as all hell. So those warlords are all clocking games by like 6 or 7 energy, usually. Less against each other. Like I have games that end on turn 3 or 4 in Garo matchups, or Erlin or Lucius mirrors. Like it's total. If you're not used to that speed of play, like it's complete madness that a game can happen that fast. Like 3 turns and it's over. So those would be my go-to. The classic factions. Even Sons of Horus can play pretty fast. The starting 4 factions from the basic cards crates are so far seem to be where like fast aggro is a little bit more. You can build certain stuff like that in other factions, but they have it a bit more. They have the tools for that a little bit better, and the right warlords for it. So I'd pick one of the 4 founding fathers of the heresy and run with one of their factions decks. So Death Guard, Emperors, Children, World Eaters, or Sons of Horus. And it's the 30 healthers who are the fastest ones. But the trickiest to play. And then, last question, should I be doing something with my gold, or just go for expansions that have the Legion I like? Well, this video will be archived on YouTube, so I would suggest cruise back, because I do have some other things to say. I'll repeat them now, but check back in case there was anything else useful that I said about how best a new player should spend their gold. My recommendation, what I did, bearing in mind gold was a little more plentiful back in my day, the economy's changed a bit, so you've got to stay on top of some other things if you really want to just be getting the most gold that you can. But if you're new, what you want to be doing with your gold is just dumping it into basic cards crates until you find that until you have most of the common cards. The reason that you're doing that is you want to accumulate the playable common cards from the neutral sections of each expansion. So you'll start by doing that with cards crates, you'll do that with the Istvan 5 crate, and then you'll do that with the Extermination crate. The main goal in buying those crates is not to get a Salamanders collection or an Alpha Legion collection. The main reason to buy those crates is to build up your neutral collection, because the more robust a neutral collection have, then the more warlords you can play competitively, because everyone plays some neutral cards. That's just what they're doing. So I would be spending your gold there, and then once you're hitting duplicates, you can stop buying into those faction crates. If you're missing a few odd cards, especially if they're rarer, you can buy them with gems, but you don't need to go fishing into a card crate for it. So that would be my suggestion with that. And then focus on one faction at a time. So if you want to collect Alpha Legion, you can save gold for Alpha Legion specific crates and save gems for Alpha Legion cards. But I wouldn't go digging through an expansion crate to find anything more than common Alpha Legion cards. That's the best you can hope for. And the best way to allocate your resources is just with focus. Try to complete your challenges if you can. I don't pay attention to my challenges. I just play, and I'll usually accumulate some part of them. I'll get a check mark, between 1 and 3 check marks, and whatever I get. But if you need the gold, yeah, play the challenges. There's a challenge subforum in Discord with all kinds of help for it, and it'll help with your deck building. Actually, it's a good exercise. I actually should do it more myself, but it is a good exercise. So I would say do that and play Event. Event is going to do more than gold can for you, because Event you're paying tickets for, and you're going to get tons of cards back, and gold. And any cards you get that are duplicates, you'll get gems to buy solos. But generally, focus that gold at one thing at a time. So start with your basic cards crates, then go to the Istvan 5 cards crates, then go to Extermination cards crates, until you have a decent chunk of the common cards. Because you're looking for stuff like Defense Satellites, Artillery Strikes, Seek and Destroy, the card draw effects from the Istvan 5 expansion, Las Rifle section from Extermination. They're all common cards or green bordered cards. They're very accessible. So you don't need to be sticking thousands of gold into these crates. You just want to get your hands on those sorts of basics. So basically removal. But you don't want to go fishing in those crates for epic cards. Sadly, you'll have to wait for them to be on sale in the shop, or you'll have to go crush events. Crushing events is a great way to get epic and legendary cards. But if you cruise back around the beginning of the of this archived Q&A, I go over stuff like this, and I might go into it a little bit more in depth. There might be some things that I've forgotten to say. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. If there's any other questions y'all have, feel free to ping me on the Discord. Just drop me a private message, and I'll answer you as soon as I can. I'm not ignoring you. If you see me online and I haven't answered you, I'll answer you as soon as I can. Don't worry about it. And plug in with me on Wednesday night. I think it'll be a little bit later than usual. I think 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll promo it beforehand. But 9 or 10 p.m. on on Wednesday night, I'll be live. I'll be back online, and there'll be a channel episode maybe at the end of the week. Sorry, it's late. What's my favorites? I have to think about that because I don't have an appropriately 40k swear word. I don't think. I'm a Drukhari. I'm a Xeno scum in 40k, so all my swear words are incomprehensible. Eldari gibberish, ranting and raving about the Monkey. But I have to find something more chaos appropriate. I know I'm Xeno scum. Anyways, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Appreciate everything. Drop me a line if you need anything.